Alright, hi guys. I'm going to quickly run through some of the stuff that's probably going to come on the test tomorrow. So, for chemistry, the AQA C1 paper. Okay, so you've probably got atoms, question atoms coming up. So we're looking at subatomic particles. Make sure you're mentioning how many protons, neutrons and electrons there are. If they say, for instance, describe in terms of subatomic particles, how many, or, yada yada yada. You'll get a question on isotopes. Often define an isotope, or they'll give you two different ones, and they'll ask you to state, and you will say how many protons. You'll have the same number of protons and different numbers of neutrons, and you'll need to state how many of each as well. You'll get the periodic table. They might ask you to compare that with Newland's table or some other previous ones, Mendeleev's table with like a previous one. They'll give you a dot and cross diagram to draw. Don't forget, dot and cross diagrams are sharing of electrons. They are sharing of pairs of electrons, between two non-metals. Now, you've got ionic bonds, which are transferring of electrons to form an electrostatic bond, and that happens between a metal and a non-metal. And then you've got metallic bonding, which happens between metals. Don't forget, an alloy is a mixture of metals. They'll ask you to draw an ionic bond. Don't forget to put the charges on the outside of the square brackets, and only represent the outer electron shells. How ionic bonds are formed. You can state how the ionic bonds are formed. So for instance, they might ask you, they might give you something like lithium chloride. They will show you they will say, how was this ionic bond formed? And you need to state how many electrons have been transferred from what to what has gained the electrons, what have lost the electrons, what charges they now have. If you're not sure how to answer that question, I've got videos up on that as well in what's coming up. The structure of giant covalent structures and properties, including allotropes of carbons. We're looking at diamond and graphite. Don't forget, graphite has 3 other covalent bonds. 3 other each carbon is joined to 3 other carbons by covalent bonds, and it leaves one for one free electron, and that free electron means that it can conduct electricity as a result of that. Diamond, on the other hand, each carbon is bonded to 4 other carbon atoms, and that leaves it very strong. Both of them have very high melting points. Now, because graphite only has weakened to molecular forces between layers, graphite is slippery. Okay. But yeah, those are giant covalent structures. They're different as opposed to the small, simple molecular structures, simple covalent, which are mostly liquids and gases, and they have low melting and boiling points. Okay, so they'll give you a question balancing equations. Now, that's generally a maximum of 2 marks. 1 mark for putting the correct numbers in, and the other mark for putting in state symbols. So that'll be aqueous, which means dissolved in water, solid, liquid, or gas. And then you've got, but usually the state symbols, they ask for that in the higher paper. Although you should be prepared that they might come up in foundation. Know how to do word equations. Usually in foundation they'll just give you word equations and they'll ask you, what is it, this plus this, and just put it in. Know your acids. Hydrochloric acid will give you a chloride, nitric acid will give you a nitrate, sulfuric acid will give you a sulfate. Look at your trends in group 1 and 7 elements, and why. Don't forget about electron shielding. Also, why group 8, or otherwise known as group 0 elements, don't react. And then required practical question. These are generally on chromatography, which is used to separate dyes. Crystallization is a favorite. Sometimes they might ask you about fractional distillation, or electrolysis. Electrolysis is a pretty nice one. I predict that. There'll also be a question on calculating masses, where you might have to use relative molecular mass. They might ask you for a percentage of, what percent of carbon is in CH4 or something, and you would add up the atomic masses of carbon, which is 12, and then you go 4 hydrogens, 1 each, and that gives you a total of 16. And then you would take your carbon, which is take your carbon, which is 12, and then you divide it by 16, and that would give you total percentage. Titrations, moles, those ones we're looking at, higher tier triple. If you're not sure how to do those ones, I've got videos up on those as well. I just wish you good luck. No one can ask any more of you than your best. Don't stress. Just believe in yourself and everything will be okay. Trust me on this. Wish you the best.